This is Cannibal Corpse. You're watching Fuse on Demand. Get it when you want it.
I was the youngest of three kids growing up in the Bronx, and my brother and sister both played piano and guitar. My mom and dad both played piano, and I hated it because when it came time for me to take piano lessons, I said no thanks. Obviously, I was influenced by groups like the Beatles and the Stones, and even before then, Elvis Presley, guys like B.B. King. Being around all that music, I pretty much got it by osmosis. I started playing my brother's folk guitar. I started figuring out Beatles songs and stuff, and then one day I went to my friend's house, Johnny, who had an electric guitar, and I played one chord, through an amplifier, and forget it, it was like love. I just knew that was my thing. And from that point on, it was just a love affair between me and the guitar and heavy rock and roll. I did a lot of thinking about what people were going to expect from this record, and I always kept going back to that first 1978 record as my first solo album because everybody cites that as their favorite Ace record. So, I tried to dissect it. I listened to it several times in the studio going, what's so special about this record? I tried to get into the mindset of some of the songs that I wrote over the last couple of years. I just tried to bring in that flavor, and, I think I achieved that. I think I achieved a lot more. I think, the last couple of, I wrote A Little Below the Angels last year and Change the World, which are a little of a departure from me, but, I think it shows musical growth. It's kind of a mishmash of, influences from the past, current influences, and everything else. Anomaly, deviation from the common rule. That's me. The working title for the album last year was Pax Eternal, which is Latin for peace. So, I thought it was okay. It just didn't knock my socks off. One day I was, with my assistant Frank Muniz, and we're brainstorming in LA in a hotel suite. He's got his laptop, I got mine, and we're surfing the internet going, let's come up with a name, let's come up with a name. But I said Anomaly, and Frank goes, that's it. He goes, you're a walking anomaly. And pretty much I am. I never took a guitar lesson. I don't know how to read music. Probably at least 25% of the chords I played on this album, I don't even know what they're called. But, it sounds good. But in the studio, I'll mix it up with, I'll cut a basic track with a Les Paul and I'll overdub a Fender. Because, like a Fender, like a Tele or a Strat will have a different harmonic range. So, but when you blend the two together, you get a much thicker sound. So I've been doing that. I was doing that on my 78 album. So it really hasn't changed very much, the beginning of the recording process. The ending of the recording process always ends up in the computer now, instead of a 2-inch analog tape. But that's okay. I really strive to get an older sounding type of album that didn't sound too digitized, and I think I achieved that. And I used old microphones, old guitars, old amplifiers, old Fender amps, old Vox amps, old Marshall amps, and recording it with older mics, tube mics, and going into older preamps gives you that warmer sound. And as long as you don't overload the digital bus, you're golden. I gave some of the songs out to a couple of top producers in the New York area, and they mixed, 3 or 4 of the tracks, and they sounded really good, but they didn't sound great. And you don't wait 20 years for an Ace Frehley record to have a good mix. We went out to California and started looking for guys to mix the record because we just couldn't find anybody in New York that, we felt was going to do the right job. Marty Fredrickson's name kept popping up in every conversation, He was like one of the 3 or 4 people that I'd ask somebody. I'm sitting in a car with John 5, and I'm going, John, who would you get? He goes, well, he named 1 or 2 other guys. He goes, Marty Fredrickson would be good. He did the Aerosmith record, he did Metallica. I called them up, we took a meeting, and we just hit it off. Little did I know he was just going to take the album up a whole notch.